Hello. And we're back in the house again one more time Thursday. Next week we will not be here, so you'll be enjoying your family. You'll be enjoying ours as well. It's the Thursday night situation,
Well,
Friday Eve.
some people will.
Some people will. I mean, I think Zoom is giving people like a free hour or something to talk to people. Like you can still enjoy your family, you just got to do so responsibly. You know what I'm saying?
It'll be me and Kofax who has even left me right now.
Okay. When your dog abandons you, there's like literally nothing you can do. That's pretty foul. That's pretty foul. Oh, why am I showing you as me? It is what it is. So the homie Webbs, Mike Lang back in the house. We're just chilling and whatnot. And today we're going to kind of make things beautiful. Poetry is a beautiful thing. We're going to talk about a little bit about writing across the curriculum, which, always in my experience has been no one does writing instruction unless you're the English teacher, right? Like when you leave elementary school, if you're not in English class, and no one is telling you how to write. It's you should know how to do this, and you're like, okay, what if I don't? What's the remediation? How do I learn how to do something that maybe I don't know how to do? And so, writing across curriculum is very, very important, and that's kind of going to lead us into our Ask a Software Engineer question tonight, Webbs. In order to be a software dev, do you have to be able to write?
I mean, yeah. I would say it's not even like just being a software developer. Like we have to write documentation and stuff, but I think that actually where I use writing the most is because I'm on a distributed team. But even then, even when I wasn't on a distributed team, I still wrote like a crap ton. Like the primary means of communication for most teams I've been on is email or chat of some kind, whether that's Google Chat or Slack or Teams. Writing is the primary way that we communicate, and there is so much that can get miscommunicated. If you're not really adept at your word choice, delivery, intonation, like even if you are really adept at it, like there are still times when, the way that you write something and you perceive how you wrote it and the way the person reads it don't match up. And so you have to also be able to, adjust for that, or like have the skills to be able to address it. Like, oh no, I'm sorry. That's not what I meant. I didn't mean to be, because there was that big study a while back where like, if you end your sentences with a period, people think you're being short. Like, and also we live in a day and age of text messaging. Like we text message more than anything. Dating apps start out with text messages back and forth before you ever talk to somebody in person. Like we are such a text reliant society that like writing, I think, is one of the essential skills, even outside of software development, like for any job and just general communication.
But think about like go back in your educational career, like a lot of stuff, a lot of information is like you learn things on accident, right? Like how to do your taxes, you learn it on accident, or you don't learn it at all. How to balance your checkbook, you learn it on accident, or you don't learn it at all. Like I think what you just described is one of those. Either you learned it through experience, you were blessed enough to have someone who walked you through. Hey, this is word choice. This is how to do things. I've read enough books that hey, I can copy the style of this person and say this is what I want to deal with. But there are a lot of people who don't because they're not exposed to that type of writing and communication that they become hamstrung and unable to pass certain gates. You know what I'm saying?
I think too, our experience in writing with learning writing is very different than our experience using writing. So for one, here's a fun fact. When I was in 4th grade, my report card said that I was not a very strong writer, which I call BS on now because I think I'm a very strong writer and quite the wordsmith. But that aside, I think that the way that we learn writing, and I think I mentioned this before, like we learn it through the writing process. We learn it through doing four squares and having all these frameworks, which are great. However, how often do we write essays? Like we don't write essays. We don't talk about like, here's four reasons why Abraham Lincoln is the greatest president or whatever. Like that's not the way that we write. And so maybe part of it is like the fact that the way we practice writing when we're learning it and the way we apply it when we're using it are two very different things. Like how often have you come across classrooms where it's like, oh, you can't use emojis, you can't use text speak or whatever, but like that's the authentic way that we use writing the most. I think it's important to know how to write emails, like professional emails. That's definitely important. And it's important to understand how to switch registers or switch your not register. What's the word I'm looking for? When you use contexts or something. I mean, that's not really the word I want either, but it'll work. Like switching context too makes a difference, right? So the way that I talk to my friends, audience, there's a different word I'm looking for. I can't think of it.
Yeah, I know, but like essentially you're talking UX now, right? So essentially, yo, I'm dealing with Webbs. Webbs is not from Washington D.C. She's not from this urban place that I'm from. If I communicate the way that I would communicate with my friends from back home in the vernacular that I'm using, if my goal is to be understood. So if my goal is to be understood, I have to think about the person I'm conversing with and say, okay, how can I be understood with Webbs if my goal is for her to understand what I'm talking about? And
how do you know that I'm not from an urban place?
What I'm saying is straight up and down. I don't feel like this joint right here is not really, really, really. It's way too blown right now. Like, did you understand what I was talking about?
No idea.
Okay, so this is what I'm saying. Like, if I'm talking to my boys, I just switch. I'm like, oh, and we just go where we need to go, right? But if my goal is, and I think that's the kind of the issue that we have with school is it's this fictional place, right? School is this place where we create these artificial walls that this is what is true, and you're like, no, that's actually not what is true. What is true is that if I'm speaking to a certain group of individuals, I need to be able to communicate effectively with those certain groups of individuals in a way that they're going to understand. And if that is vernacular and colloquialisms, then vernacular and colloquialisms it is. If I'm speaking to highly academic people, then I need to be able to converse in highly academic language. If I'm speaking to people in a rural place, I need to understand what a rural person expects me to be able to perceive and then enunciate. So, yeah, I mean, again, you are from Michigan. I don't know Michigan slang. So if I walked into a place where you were from and they started talking about the local dialect of English, I would be like, what are these people saying? Like, I don't understand what's going on. But when I first got to Missouri, I had never heard someone referred to as a tool before, right? So I'm like, what the devil does that mean? It doesn't sound like it's positive. So this is a horrible thing. But could you define for me what a tool is? Like, it was confusing type stuff.
I was gonna say also academia is a silo. I think it's like a field silo in a way, like the things that we do in academia, whether it's in elementary school, middle school, high school, and college, so often are not tools that we use in the professional world. So like, again, going back to the writing thing, we do a lot of writing essays. We do a lot of writing papers. Like, do you know how often I've had to write a paper for my job? Never. The closest I came was I wrote an article about artificial intelligence in the criminal justice system. And even then, by the time you get to that space, so many of the tools that you're given earlier, like in college, in high school, in middle school, and elementary, are almost frowned upon because they're so trite. Like why, I was pushed away from like, don't try to use a listicle format. Like don't do the basic 5-paragraph thing. Like break all these rules that you were taught because they're kind of hackneyed. They're like way overused. And that's a sign of being an amateurish writer is that you rely on these tools. And so, I guess maybe some of it is like you break the rules once you know them or whatever. But it's just, I just feel like the way that we learn to write isn't practical. The big shift I saw in my students, and in particular, editing and revising feel meaningless. Like I even remember when I was a kid, I was like, why do I need to do this? It's fine the way it is. Like if like you understand me. And I think too, kind of going off on a tiny tangent, the whole grammar Nazi thing in social media and calling people like, oh, it's your YOU apostrophe RE. As long as your message is understood, like, let it go, bruh. Cause now you're talking classism, low key racism, like, let it go.
But it's also, I mean, I've written articles for PBS, for Edutopia, for all these, and I give them one thing, they send it back with all these changes in it. There's someone who is paid to edit your stuff. Every professional writer has an editor. That's Stephen King. That's whoever you think is like the dopest writer out there. Someone looked at that person's stuff and said, "Hold fast, let me change this so this actually is written the way it's supposed to be written." Right? The ideas are clear, but I'm going to make it so it is. It follows the actual American standards of grammar. Right? So the other issue that I have with kind of writing is allowing students to go and play with writing. Right? Play with. This is why I've been a poet since I was like 6. I love poetry. When I walked in and I met E. E. Cummings when I was in 3rd grade, I was like, this is that dude, right? He writes with all lowercase letters. There is no punctuation in a lot of the poems. I'm like, this is my guy. And so started just eating this stuff up, and I'm like, all right, cool. So then I started to write like E. E. Cummings. Like for a long time, Mike Lang was all lowercase letters. I would write my name on top of papers, Mike Lang, all lowercase letters. And Miss Komar, 3rd grade, Miss Komar says, well, you can't do that. And I was like, why can't I do that? Because that's not true. My niece, I know I didn't get with her. We're gonna set that up. We're gonna set that up. We're gonna set that up. Forgive me, Eleanor. We're supposed to have a special guest tonight. I kind of teased it on Sunday, and I got busy, and I didn't reach out to her, and I didn't want to put her on the spot. I wanted to be prepared. So after Thanksgiving, we'll have the Eleanor Lang special. My niece is like, I know, probably chomping at the bit. I will go. We will get together. We'll have like 10 days. We'll fix it up. Don't worry about Eleanor. We'll be there. But Miss Komar told me I couldn't do that. And I remember taking that E. Cummings books out and said, well, he says I can. And E. comes with a poet laureate, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think when you give kids opportunities to play with language and you're not that we shouldn't when revising, like try to correct the your, there. All right, so cool. I'm still on the good list. That's good that I'm still on the good list. Uh, so I'm gonna bring
You
this.
got called out hardcore.
I did. So this is my brother telling me that my niece. But I did get called out. My bad. My bad. Again, we will get you on the show. I didn't know we had like a queue. Now I feel like Johnny Carson or something like I'm like we gotta have special guests all the time. So we'll get you on the show, Eleanor. We'll get you on the show. But I think giving kids the opportunity to play with language in a meaningful way, and then go and correct the grammar mistakes after they're finished, the there, the your, all that kind of stuff like that, and learn those things, but not have an expectation that kids are going to be perfect and that people are going to be perfect. I think to your idea where the whole grammar Nazi on social media. Social media to me is a different place. It's just this is a quick sound bite of I need you to understand what I'm talking about. There should not be um, the intimation that one has to be perfect when one is speaking in, very rarely do you see anyone write paragraphs on social media because that's not the platform to write paragraphs. It's a sentence or
I
two.
mean, some threads get real deep.
Okay. I generally stop reading real deep. That's not what I'm there for, fam. If I need to read a blog post, I go to a blog and read the blog post. I'm not going on Twitter for some like 25 threads of what you had for breakfast this morning or whatever the double episode it was. Blog that stuff, fam. Blog it. Uh, dope. Go ahead, Webs.
Michael Harriet on Twitter has some of the best threads.
He does that, but most of his stuff also gets transferred to the root, and I just read on the root in the actual blog form, so I don't have to like
That's fair.
go through. It's just annoying because I'm there for just this like soundbite. Give me was it 200 characters or whatever it is, 110 characters,
240.
240 characters, and that is that's fam. If you can't give me that in that very very short form, you're not using Twitter right, man. Like go blog. and put the link to the blog up there. Um, so, what was your experiences in terms of writing outside of the English class? Were you forced to write then? Were you not forced to write then? Like,
So this is one of those things that I feel like I have a horrible bias in because I have loved writing since I was a kid. Like I have diaries that go back to me being 7 years old. I have kept journals, and we've talked about this before. Like I will buy journals just because they seem like cool journals. But I enjoy writing. I find it to be a cathartic experience. But I was always generally a long form writer until I was in high school. Shout out to Miss Beavers, my high school, one of my high school English teachers. I remember she had us do poetry, and like the way that we did it was like we just wrote something, just like write, describe an experience, whatever. Then we'd go back and like, okay, now condense it, like take out all those words you don't really need, and then we went back again. And it was like, okay, now I want you to think about like how can you swap out certain words and make them a little bit more interesting, give them more color, more texture. And there was something, I think maybe because it was a very clear process, like with each revision, we were doing something very specific. So because it was so focused and it was so like systematic, it really appealed to me. And that was the first time I felt like, holy crap, I can write poetry. And I remember reading that poem over and over and over again because I was like, this is good. This is like really good. I didn't know I could do this. This is amazing. And then I wrote poems about like freaking everything for like a year because it was just, I wrote poems about like stuff that went on outside my window and just like
what
random
did you
things.
write in science and in math and in geography class and all those other places as well?
I mean, essays.
But
Like,
but like, was it just like, hey, Webs, write an essay, or was it actual instructions about this is how you write an essay in geography class? Or
no, it was just write an essay. Like, I'm trying to think. I don't think I had geography. I had math. We didn't really write much in math. I gotta like blow the dust off my memories. We didn't really write much in science either. Like science, I just remember doing like scientific method kind of stuff, and then like writing reports about things.
interesting.
That's all I really remember. I don't remember writing much outside of English classes.
I don't think that most students write outside of English classes in a structured way. I think that when you talk about history, it's all facts, 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 facts. Write a paragraph about this, write a paragraph about this, whatever. There's no actual instruction on how to be successful that way. If you're not a great writer going into your history class, you're not going to be a great writer coming out of it because they're not going to generally give you the scaffolds necessary to do what you need to do, right? And on the poetry deal, and I think all great writing is just stealing, right? Like you find somebody's style, and you're like, hey, this is really cool. I'm just gonna take this. I'm gonna take this. I'm gonna do everything. I mean, I'm a big audiophile. You will listen to a rapper or a rock band or whatever. You're like, you definitely listen to this person, that person, that person, this person, that person, because that riff, guitar riff, that intonation in your voice, that is that person's that you listened to before, and not that you're stealing it. You're sitting and saying this person influenced me to go and do my own thing, but a piece of that person lives, right? And so, like, whether it's T.S. Eliot, whether it's Lord Byron, whether it's E. Cummings, whether it's Emily Dickinson, whether it's Hughes, whether it's Zora Neale Hurston, everybody that you start reading, if you dig something, you're going to take a little piece of that and integrate it into your own personal style, right? And I think that's the other like really interesting thing about forcing kids to read and read widely. When you start to if you want me to create writing, I have to read writer, and I've got to read writers that are really high level writers, middle level writers, very poor writers. I have to read people who I would totally. I mean, it's like me with music. Like if I hang out with you enough, you're gonna give me a band that I've never heard of, and I'm gonna listen to it and be like, all right, cool. This I see why this embodies this person. I mean, I dig all of it, but I may add it to a playlist, right? And say, okay, cool. And that song pops up. Oh, you know what? That's really dope. That this person that I, is my friend now gave me that. That's how I got into the Cure when I was in high school. I had no idea who these people were. When I transferred high schools, but one of the very first friends that I had hands me the Disintegration album. They're like, look, listen to this. And I'm like, dude, I'm an African American, my dude. I ain't listening to this garbage. And so I get the CD home. I put it in my CD player and I start listening to it. My headphones on. I'm like, this is kind of dope, right? This is different. This is not. And then he'd give me, In Excess albums, and I'd give him Gangstar albums, and we'd swap it and stuff. But it gives you a kind of better appreciation of how things roll, right? I think writing's the same way. And that's where, as educators, it is important that we expose students to stuff that they would never choose to read. Like, let kids read what they want, but expose them to stuff that they would never know. Hey, this is really something that's dope, and I might want other things in this vein, like this finding squid in writing.
I had this history teacher when I was in college, and I don't know how we got on the subject, but we started talking about music, and we were chatting after class one day, and he was like, "Oh, you got to check out this band called the White Stripes," and I was like, "I don't know who that is, but sure." And the next time he came, he brought me like a CD of the White Stripes, and I traded him with a band I listened to. He was one of the dopest professors ever. Like, I remember he came in one time. First of all, he told history all through stories, and he told them as like really relatable stories with like modern references to things. And he was also like a trained chef, and which I think is also an interesting observation. Like, some of the most fascinating people are people who have like these weird, multifaceted personalities and things that they've done. And anyway, so he came into class one day and his hand was all bandaged up, and he's like, "I'm going to try my best to get through class today, but I'm really high right now because I cut my finger off and I'm on a lot of drugs because it hurts." Because he had like cut the tip of his finger off while he was cooking.
Wow.
And yeah. And so I think we got halfway through class and he's like, "Yeah, this isn't going to work. So you can just go." He was like, but he was that like, he was that kind of person. He loved what he did and he came in anyway. And then he's like, "Yeah, I can't do." Like, that one time I showed up to that conference, like, in no condition to do anything. I was like, "No, but I'm here."
Yeah, that was
It was like I had
that was
COVID before
definitely
COVID was a
that's
thing.
definitely pre-COVID, and I would have been wearing a mask had you walked up in that room for real, for real. It was deep, son. It was deep, deep.
But anyway, yeah, he was super cool. And like, I don't know. I don't even remember the point of telling that story, but he
Oh,
was super
music,
cool.
swapping the
And
music.
oh, storytelling, swapping music. Yeah, yeah.
So, like, poetry, if you were writing across curriculum, to me, if you're not someone who's trained as an English professor or whatever, and you're like, hey, the kids need to write stuff, and I don't want them writing 17-page essays about random stuff that I don't care about. And just keep it 100. Most teachers are not reading those 17-page essays. You may read 1 or 2 pages of that crap before you're like, hey, let's go to the next one. Um, Essays don't keep anybody's attention. I don't care how much you like to read essays. You ain't reading all that stuff, dude.
Also, from what we know about people's attention spans and the way entertainment has changed in the last like decade plus, why are we still having people write 5, 10, 15, 20-page essays? Like, there are a bajillion better ways of assessing knowledge than, and much more entertaining and concise ways too. Like, there was a post, I saw a teacher post earlier on one of the Facebook groups that I'm in or whatever. And she was like, "I'm really nervous that my videos that I do for parents are too short." And I was like, "Oh, no, no, no. I don't think that's possible. Like, keep them short, keep them concise. You don't need to give them like 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, 40 minutes. Nobody's going to watch that." Like, it was hard for me to get into podcasts because I refused to listen to anything that was like longer than 15 minutes. Now I'll listen to like an hour long podcast over a certain amount of time, but like, short is fine. It doesn't need to be some like Campbell's soup that shiz. Like, condense it.
Indeed. So, like, the poetry deal, though, is poetry, I think, is inherently creative, right? It's inherently disruptive. There are no rules. There are rules, like, if you're writing sonnets and things like that, are there some loose rules? If you're talking about, um, a Shakespearean sonnet versus the Italian sonnet, yeah, there are differences in how many syllables you're supposed to have and the meter and everything. Yeah, yeah, wonderful. But if you're just talking about, I just want to express myself, expressing yourself through poems, there are no rules. I can do a free form poem that doesn't have to rhyme, can have any meter that I would like, um, and no one can judge me for it. Like, you will pick up. volumes of poetry, and you're like, all right, cool. This person's just writing, fam, and it's cool that they're just writing. Like it has, as long as it has some kind of personal meaning for you, I think it works. It also again frees students from having to overthink their writing, which I think is another problem we have in terms of people outside the English classroom trying to put the writing inside the curriculum. Hey, now this is a person who is a perhaps a great history professor, but not the best editor in terms of the essay, who's now giving me advice on write and revise this essay, which in a history class, how many times did you write and revise an essay? You probably turned it in, that person gave you an F, and you kept it moving, right? It wasn't no, let's go
I
back to the,
mean,
what?
I didn't get an F. Like,
But,
never got an F. But yeah.
I mean, they were
Like,
not
I was,
interested in you improving as a writer.
I mean, I am still to this day the type of person who's like, I can skim this right before class. That's fine.
So, I mean,
Also, I think writing is a lot like making like making movies, because if movies are well edited, then you end up cutting a lot out. In the same way, like good poetry, if it's well done, I think you end up cutting a lot of the extra out, right? It's this super condensed, like pop roxy version of what you're trying to say.
yes and no. I mean, if you look at like Paradise Lost, right? Paradise Lost is a poem. Milton writes this. This is a novel is a poem, right? I think it's just it's vehicles, right? I mean, my favorite book of all time, Dante's Inferno, and the that is a poem. It's a long form poem. So I think that it's the thing with poetry that makes it more accessible is that again I think it's the lack of definitive rules to say you can't say that's not a poem. You can say that's not an essay. You can look at something and say nope, that's not an essay. You can never say somebody writing a poem and say no, that's not a poem. Yeah, that's a poem because I can show you something that's similar that doesn't have any punctuation, that doesn't have any capital letters, that might be a string of letters that looks like an S, whatever. Poetry doesn't have a definition in the same way that if I say write an essay, I everyone's going to say an essay looks like this, and like 9 out of 10 people are going to agree. A poem is like great visual art, right? Like if someone says this is a classic, to me that's a classic, fam. I mean, you don't have to agree with me that that's a classic, but to me that's a piece of artwork that should be put in the MoMA or whatever it is. And I think that allows students to have a personal stake in their work rather than I wrote this page thing that this person went through and put red lines all the way through and now I feel bad as a writer. I mean, again, those are the most heartbreaking experiences that I had as a kid. Was you put your heart and soul in this thing? You were writing it for 3 4 hours, typing it like you're almost on the little what is word processor, typing the thing up, and you hand it in like this is dope. I really researched this, and you get red. Nah, bro, mm-mm. That hurts your feelings. That hurts your feelings.
That's interesting because we one of the things that we kind of so like writing code is still kind of writing, and one of the things that we have that's kind of controversial are called pull requests. So if you write something and then you want to include it in like the main branch that everybody shares, you open a pull request, and then people review your work, and you can they have to approve it in order for it to get merged into the branch. And it's controversial because a lot of people view it as like very toxic to share your work with people and then have because some people take that opportunity to like establish dominance and be jerks
Yeah.
about it and be like, oh well, you didn't put 4 spaces here, you only put 3, so you're a failure of a dev. Burr burr burr. So like yeah, that's that feeling is familiar to me.
Yeah, it kind of like that hurts your feelings, fam. Like
I think a lot of it depends on the team that you're on because like our team does pull requests mostly for informational things as a second set of eyes to like double check. But a lot of it I think is team culture too. Like our team is really supportive in like all of that comes from a good place. The way it's worded comes from a good place, whatever.
all right, dope, super dope, and like I don't know. One of the ways that you can really kind of connect your poems or the idea of poetry into any context is haiku, because haiku again is there's no wrong way to write a haiku, right?
I think
Pretty
it's
much,
easy too.
yeah. Like this is something that you could do as an exit ticket that a kid can really get in like 10 minutes. Boom, 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 boom. Here it is. Boom. I know what you're talking about, fam. Or even using them, I've used them as tell me things that you don't understand, and I want you to write it in a point. Like I don't understand this part, this part, this part. Why do we have to learn this? Whatever. And again, the haiku are it's very approachable. Um, if you are very interested in haiku, like Basho would be the person to start with. It's a Japanese art form. Basho is amazing. Just to sit and just read. I mean, this stuff from like the 17th century or something like that. But Japanese art form, 3 lines, 5 syllables, 7 syllables, 5 syllables. There are some people that do 7, 9, 7. I mean, like the syllables, even if a kid is off a syllable, what do I care? It's a 3 line poem. Do I very much attempt to tell them, hey, it should be 5 syllables, 7 syllables, 5 syllables, of course. But I've had kids write haiku for a decade over so, and I've been an English teacher 1 year of my 17-year career. So, um, the concept of a haiku is approachable. It doesn't have to be in sentence form. It could just be in a grouping of words. It could be phrases. Um, and it's again it's pretty easy to write through. So we're gonna kind of write through one today. Um, and I actually found something webs which is hilarious. I'm gonna present this very quickly. Now this is a poem that I wrote when I was in grad school, actually. That I was going farting around looking for stuff, and I was like, "Hey, yo, I remember this poem," and I actually presented this poem to and with a live musical accompaniment. Accompaniment. Shout out to Chelsea. She's probably not watching. Shout out to GQ. Um, GQ played played the guitar as I was reciting this poem. Chelsea sang. There's a part the parts in here where she sang like a hook to a song. It was really dope. One of the dopest experiences I've ever had in my life. It was really really cool. Um, so again, there is a way to like build this, and so it was called my pen is my it was called King Solomon's Last Kiss, and it was really really dope, and it was I don't know, it was a dope poem. So um, really really cool. It's written in I kind of borrowed a bunch of meter from it kind of started off as a sonnet, and then I played around with other stuff. I love Greek mythology from all over the place, so I kind of threw that in there. And so Chelsea sang the parts that are in that's in the kind of the cursive there. It was really dope. It was kind of like almost Evanescence ish for I'm dating myself here with the homies. Kind of that's kind of dark, beautiful type thing. So it was really dope. I appreciate Chelsea's one of the things that one of the coolest things that I've ever done as a human. Um, it was really fun. But anyway, so I found that in my Google Drive while we were talking.
Wow.
So it was pretty dope. It was fun, fun, fun. All right, so
You were a unique kid.
what do you mean?
Just like some of the things, just the way that even as a kid, there's a lot of the stories that I've heard you tell. Like the things that you thought of as a kid are just I feel like things that most kids don't think of.
Yes, that's all.
Even like even like the what was the go back to the title page? The Dred Scott Fitzgerald project.
Yeah, that was back in dang, that's 2006, 2007, something like that. Um, yeah, so that was my pseudonym, Dred Scott Fitzgerald. It's kind of I still own DredScottFitzgerald.com, I believe. Um, but it was just like, hey, yo, it was fun just playing around with stuff. And again, I think that is the draw of poetry. Poetry is it is inherently play, and I think that's where your kids will really enjoy playing around with words. Your EL students, especially if you last night was in the NBA draft, and if you're somebody who watches the draft, one of the dope thing about the draft is you have a lot of foreign-born players. And how do these foreign-born players learn English? And they will tell you rap videos, television, stuff, accessible language, not sitting in a classroom saying, oh, okay, I would like a hamburger. That's because that's not real life. Real life is actually exchanging, conversing, and whatever. And I think poetry models that real life connection between people a lot more than some paragraph or 5 paragraph essay or 5 page essay or whatever you're thinking. And I think that also the idea of haiku in this state also does that same thing. And so Rewrite Think has, and this has been around forever as well. I don't know when this thing was actually published, but like I think this is one of the only things that still works on this site. Um, this haiku starter kit is super dope. All right, and
It still says NCTE 2020.
then they have done a very poor job of keeping this website. Like horrible. But anyway, it still has a lot of Flash. So a lot of the tools don't work because it's Flash. Um, but this can be sent to your Google Classroom if you're utilizing that. You can add the PDF to your Canvas instance, whatever you're dealing with. And we're kind of just going to kind of walk through how you would get to the haiku starter, because the haiku starter is like the easiest part of this entire process. So the first thing we would do, say we're talking about math here, and I'm going to close that really quickly. So say we're talking about math, like one of the things that's really easy is to either set up a Jamboard or set up a either Jamboard or Padlet. Again, the kind of the negative thing with Padlet webs is, of course, that you only get 3, but I think it's the best tool to utilize just because of all those things, right? If I'm a kid who can't type, I can upload a file. I can link anything from a URL. I could find very quickly images, videos, audio, GIFs, or anything from the web. I can take a picture of something I have. I can film myself saying something. I can audio voice my opinion. I can use it to record my screen. I can doodle on it. I can add if I need to put a map or something someplace. And I can also link to a Padlet. So you have a lot of very easy ways to add content to a Padlet. Not so much with the Jamboard. The only thing that kind of sucks with the Padlet, hey, you only get 3 for free. But before you do anything, like set up some categories about the topic that you want the kids to kind of start writing about as a brainstorming situation. So say we're talking triangles, and I kind of did this one almost like a kindergarten example, right? You start learning your shapes and the differences between the shapes very early. How would you describe a triangle? Oh, they're pointy. They have 3 sides. They can't roll. You could go as, very left field type stuff. Where do you see them? Hey, you kind of have kids tell about, what places that you can see a triangle, on street signs, at McDonald's, hash browns sometimes are in those triangles, right? Have kids, their background knowledge there. Can you make
What
them?
what kind of hash browns do you eat?
There are triangle hash browns, fam. Where did I get the triangle hash browns from? Our school lunch used to be triangle hash browns.
Huh.
As a kid.
Oh, actually, come to think of it, I think potato cakes from Arby's are triangles. I don't know why I know that. Turnovers are also triangles. Quesadillas can be in triangles. I don't know why all my examples are food, but
Yeah, but you could get kids.
Baklava tends to be in triangles.
So we're talking about background knowledge, what you've been exposed to. This is sharing. So I don't know what baklava is. I'm gonna go and Google what a baklava is. Oh my goodness, that's really cool. I want to taste one that looks like it'll be sweet. All right, excellent. How can you make the triangles? I could make baklava. I could make potato cakes. I could make cookies that are in triangles. I could take straws and make them. Whatever. What could you make with triangles?
I have a funny story.
Go ahead.
When I was in college, I contracted this math class to be an honors credit. And in order to do that, I had to have like an extra project. So my extra project was building a dodecahedron out of cocktail swords. And then I wrote a report about the dodecahedron. I don't know how I got credit for that class.
Was in college?
In college.
Wow.
It was actually kind of cool because the dodecahedron that I built out of the cocktail swords, I glued it with hot glue so it made it bounceable. It was really kind of neat. But again, I don't know how anyone thought that that was something that should be approved for honors
I should have
credit.
went to college with you, fam. Should have went to college with you. Indeed, that is deep. That's deep. So in terms of like your brainstorming deal, especially if you're doing distance learning, this is awesome because the other thing that it allows students to do is come back to it. Whether they did your class live, whether they do it 3 weeks after you finish with it, hey, this thing lives. You can go back and kind of check things out, and that's whether you do a Jamboard, Padlet, any of the Google apps for education outside of your drawing and your forms are also going to give you that instantaneous collaborative function where kids can see, pretty quickly what other students are adding. So again, brainstorming first, and you can brainstorm.
It's also it's a great scaffold for students who might be struggling, whether that's because they're English learners or just because, this isn't an area where they excel. So they need a little additional support. Being able to see all these ideas and draw from this bank of ideas is going to be a really useful scaffold.
Also, it's going to reflect real life, right? I don't need to know everything. I can steal and borrow ideas from other people. Hey, this person has a different experience than I do. That's really cool. Now I want to have that experience, and we take that and add that to my toolbox. So I think that one of the things I hate about school is this um, emphasis on self, right? On this one person. You as one person need to be able to do X, Y, and Z. Well, okay, that's not really real life, fam. That's not how it really works. Because again, if you were not blessed to have been exposed to a whole bunch of things, you're going to be at a serious disadvantage. So Padlet, Jamboard, all the Google stuff, the Adobe stuff really hasn't got to the like instantaneous collaborative function yet. You can still collaborate. It's just going to take you refreshing the page and stuff gets all lost in translation. It is not a very good experience. Same thing with the Apple stuff. Everyone's not going to have it. If you have the manage IDs, sometimes that doesn't work with instantaneous collaboration either. So they did have a scenario where now manage IDs can go and use those things to log into the Apple Teacher Center. So if you have your school district, have your manager ID, you can now use that legitimately to get your Apple Teacher certification. So learned that a couple of days ago. So we've got the little brainstorming part there, Webs, great, fine, dandy. Now, if we step here into our haiku starter, we've got a body of knowledge to bank or to kind of pull from and draw from. All we're going to do is either give the kids the link to this handout or take and download this handout and upload it into your Google Classroom or give them the ability to put in the Google Drive. But if I hit that print, I can type right on this document right inside of, right from that link. And so I'm just going to type Mike there. Today is what, the 19th?
Is it already?
Yep. All right, cool. Haiku starter. My topic's going to be triangles. And we're just going to pull ideas from that brainstorming sheet, right? Hey, triangles have 3 sides. They are pointy. They baklava, right?
Yep.
We should have potato cakes.
They can. Yep. Doorstop.
Fulcrum is what we had the other day. Let's take the scalene is a type of triangle, right? Equilateral is a type of triangle.
Pyramid.
Pyramid. 90 degrees. Angle.
Pythagorean theorem.
Pythagorean theorem. What else? Isosceles, and I misspelled this the other day. I believe that's it. Isosceles.
ISOSCELES.
Yeah.
Isosceles.
Yeah.
What was the other thing? Isn't this the thing where you can do like SOHCAHTOA or whatever?
I don't even know.
Or is that circles? No, because it's adjacent over hypotenuse. Tangent. Someone help me out here. Isn't anyone in the audience here to help me out?
Tangent.
What is it? Sokoto.
I have no idea what you're talking about. Me and math.
Something equals opposite over hypotenuse. Hold on, I'll think of it. Go ahead. I feel like this is triangles related. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like it's triangles related.
Students, again, start with the facts. Yo, this is where we'd fill out that information. I can go back and forth and steal things or whatever. I'm gonna go right here and put those things there. Now, all I'm going to do now is say 3 sides that has 2 syllables. Pointy, pointy. I don't know about that one. Great. There's a website called howmanysyllables.com. Howmanysyllables.com tells me exactly how many syllables. So my ELL friends, my friends who perhaps you got to see in geometry. I mean, that's been so long. I have no idea. But pointy has 2 syllables, and if I click that,
pointy,
it's going to tell me that's how you pronounce the word. So my ELL friends, great. Pointy has 2 syllables. Excellent. I'm going to go right here to my PDF and say pointy has 2 syllables. Baklava, I've never heard of baklava before. Great. I'm going to search the dictionary again. Baklava.
I want to see what it does with this.
3 syllables.
baklava.
Did it say it correctly?
Yeah.
So baklava is excellent. We have 3. So you just go through and write these. Again, these are going to be really easy. It's a really easy win for you because essentially this is already going to do the work for you. Already did the brainstorm in the case. It's just steal words from the brainstorm, add those things here, and they're just going to go through you're getting vocabulary instruction, how to pronounce words, how many syllables are in those words. My ELL friends are probably going crazy right now. Hey, my vocabulary is expanding with subject level vocabulary. So this is academic language they're going to need in order. If you want them to write those essays and stuff, we're preparing them for the essays because they're getting that subject level, that subject matter expertise in terms of the vocabulary instruction, right? So all those things are there. Once you have that, second page, haiku starter. I'm going to call my thing triangles. And I'm going to steal words from here. I would have, in theory, have all of those things already done in terms of the syllabification. Again, it's going to tell me, hey, 5 or 7, each line, 5 or 7. So 5, 7, 5. Triangles. Triangles is 3. Pointy.
I appreciate that how many syllables site because one, as a kid, I found that to be really frustrating. You know how usually we teach syllables by like, oh, just clap out the sounds. Like, okay, what does that even mean? Like triangle, like what? So, and I feel like that's not a useful skill. Like that's not something you need to know as an adult is how many syllables are in a word. So having a tool where you can just go look that up and check it out, I feel like is a far better use of their time and energy than trying to teach them how to frustratedly figure out how many syllables a word has. Also, it totally is a triangle thing. It is sine, cosine, and tangent, and that's how you figure it out. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent is opposite over adjacent. The more you know.
Indeed.
We could make that part of our poem or something.
So baklava is what is the name of the thing?
Baklava is
what's
a dessert?
The thing you just found?
Sokotoa?
Okay, that's not actually a word though. Is that how you
No, it's
Sokotoa?
It's an acronym. So it's SOHCAHTOA, and that's an acronym for remembering what each of those formulas is.
Okay.
Which I've never used as an adult, so have fun, geometry. But I really enjoyed geometry when I was a kid. It was one of my favorite. I love doing proofs. There's something so like relaxing in solving a proof.
I hated proofs because I'm like, dude, all right. So I got
that makes sense. I love this systematic like completeness of solving a proof.
Well, I got the answer.
Because it was basically like a system of rules, and I just would apply the system of rules to get to the answer and then go back and check it. And I don't know, there's just something really satisfying about that, which makes sense why you would hate it.
Indeed. All right, so say this is
What do
my
we got?
triangles. Triangles, pointy. Baklava, potato, cheese, 180 degrees. It's too many. So anyway, that's what we'll roll with. Now, inside that poem, do I know that the kid knows that, okay, hey, it has pointy angles. Yeah, all right, great. Baklava is the shape of a triangle. The potato wedges we talked about. Cheese, like if you cut cheese in half, you got that nice, especially the nasty American cheese. Cut it in half, you're gonna have that nice triangle there. And 180, okay, the kid is referring to degrees. He just didn't have enough syllables in order to put degrees there.
You know what would be a cool way to break the rules is to write 180 degrees. It's too many because it's too many syllables and it's too many words and it's too many lines. Anyway.
All right, so poem is done. Great. Now, if you are someone who's using Chromebooks, as many teachers are doing, if you send this to Google Classroom, everything will be saved automatically. If you download it, unfortunately, there's bugs and stuff that doesn't work. So if you print it though, and you print this as a PDF, and so instead of save as PDF, then you'll go and you'll see it. So you'll see that print option in the top right hand corner, save as PDF, and all your stuff is there. So your kids can save it, download it to their Google Drive, and I got my poem done. So great, that's kind of the pre-work situation. So I'm gonna save this deal here. Wonderful, great. I'm just gonna throw this inside the deal here. Yep. Yeah, replace it. Excellent. So that deal is there. Wonderful. Now, how could we upscale this? So we've got this poem. It's kind of ugly. I don't want this. I want to make it very, very attractive. So that's where we come to our friends, the Adobe Spark Suite, right? So the Adobe Spark Suite is going to really allow us to very easily build a graphic. Hit the plus sign there. What do I want? A custom size graphic. Doesn't really matter what size it is. I'm going to leave it that way. And say that we need to go and put this poem on the interwebs. We're going to put it on it. We're going to make one of those like cool Instagram posts with just the image and the words on it because we're going to be inspirational and all that kind of stuff, right? So in terms of all that, all we're going to do is not even going to do that. Hit the plus sign. I'm going to go for a photograph. Find a free photo. I'm going to look for triangles.
Look for baklava. Look for baklava.
That actually would be more fun, right? Baklava. All right, cool. Let's see a nice. That one's pretty triangular. Let's take that one. And we've got that. We got a nice baklava there. Excellent. Now, what you're going to have here when you use the images is if I add it to the background, it's going to take all the background space up for me, so I don't have to deal with the whole moving it back and forth. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and add it to the background, and bada bing, that's really big there. It's nice. It took care of all the centering and making it really attractive for me. Awesome.
Also, I want to eat that.
Because it does look rather tasty.
Doesn't it look delicious? You've had baklava before, right?
Indeed.
Oh, okay. I was like not sure if you really had or not.
Oh, so. Indeed. So that looks pretty tasty. That's awesome. Great. If I want it to move freely, so perhaps there was something I wanted to kind of slide it to the side of right to the left or whatever, I could deal with it that way, but I'm just going to keep it in the background so it's there and fills up that whole deal. If you have students like, we've kind of said over and over again that like, we want you to brand your work. I'm going to go and I'm going to throw that Hoodlums brand on it. Great. And I'm going to put that up in the top. So the kid has their own little brand there. I've got the, Dragons brand or whatever you're talking about. Again, that personal branding situation there. So that's there. And now all I'm going to do is do my deal. So I'm at the plus sign, go to text. If there's some text that I already want to set up and say, I really like that as my title, right? So I'm going to take that. I'm going to let that marinate. That looks pretty dope. And that looks like a restaurant too, right? So I'm getting that restaurant feeling there with the deal. Okay, cool. Now I'm going to get rid of open and I'm going to type the word triangles there. All right, cool. And I'm going to take that back one too and take the word triangles there as well. Excellent. So I've got triangles. We are open 9 a.m. to 6 a.m. I got that restaurant feel to it. Your kid is like, hey, I'm in this creative space where the baklava is, I'm doing this restaurant theme here. We are triangles and we're open from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Awesome. All right, now let's write our poem. So that plus sign there, and I make the text again. And at the top, it's going to say add your text. I'm going to click there, and then I'm just going to deal with my poem here. So I'm going to go back to that PDF that I already saved. And I'm going to copy that first one, and I'm going to throw that inside here. Where am I? That's where I am. One. Oh. Codes. Oh, that was a Padlet code. Let's go through here. And let's see if that will copy for me. No, I'll just have to type it all out. It's kind of stuck. Yep. All right, so I said triangles, pointy, baklava, potato, cheese, 180 degrees. It's too much.
It's too much.
Too much. All right. Done. So now I want it to look on those lines. Great. Now, this is where you're going to have like your kids look at things as design. Oh, done. I'm going to say, hey, that green doesn't work for me. Let's change that. Let's change that so it is. If you use the hex codes or something like that, you can deal with it. It's going to go right there. Let's go. Let's keep it.
Can we put a shape behind it?
We sure can. So we can go there as well. So we hit that shape button. Let's say, all right, great. There's a shape there. I want that shape to be more triangular. Let's make it a diamond type situation. All right, cool. The white on the diamond works. I'm gonna get there and move that up a little bit. I also want that shape. And it may be cool. Masking the text a lot of times work, but let the kids go and experiment with expanding it and making it smaller and whatever. That's as small as that diamond is gonna get. I don't like that, so I'm gonna change that as well. Let's make it like a button. That works. All right, cool. That took us literally like what, 2 minutes once I had the poem written. Kids can play around with it. Do I get the idea that the kid understands what triangles are? Yep, this is something you can send to your grandmother, your cousin, your sister Norma Jean. Yes, of course. All right. It's really, really quick, really, really simple. And this is say you had a triangle themed restaurant and you wanted your kids to go and create triangle themed recipes and triangle themed dishes. Webb's kind of named a number of triangle shaped dishes that might be an interesting wrinkle to add to that little project. And just for like proof of concept here, so not only could you do the post, I could make a video about triangles, right? So this is like literally 5 or 6 templates, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and hit that preview button.
Oh.
Triangles, a haiku poem by Michael Lang. Stronger than your square. 180 degrees of 3-sided power. And that was like 25 seconds, right? Do the kids understand?
Also,
go ahead, Webs.
If we go back to, if you watched our episode where we talked about Octalysis, the Octalysis framework, this is that personalization piece. They had an opportunity to choose the font, to decide how they want to represent themselves. So in terms of motivation and their desire to participate, raising levels of engagement, we've talked about Schlechty's levels of engagement a bunch. This is really going to boost the engagement because they have an opportunity to personalize it.
So another idea, the concept of the post. Wonderful. Triangle there. Triangles are fun. 90 degrees in the sun. Super strong triangles. Wonderful. Fine. Danny, they have to add their own picture. They have shown you visually they understand what a triangle is. All that wonderful stuff. If you wanted them to build it as a page, so as a website. So if you really have the those super right brain, I really want some added customization. I really want to make this really pretty. The building it as a page is really going to offer you some options in terms of like adding video in posts into the page, so it's really, really attractive. Changing the focus and whatnot. So this is a kind of and we're gonna put this link inside of the chat so Webs can throw it in there. Uh, this is just like a basic walkthrough of this project and tools that you might want to deal with. So the Jamboard, the Padlets, that's the idea of that haiku starter is there. Adobe Spark Post, Adobe Spark Video, and Adobe Spark Page here. And I'm actually going to click that link so you can see like this as a page example. So here's triangles as a page. Wonderful. You see you kind of got the glide effect there. This is that same poem. I didn't do anything, the same poem. I've got some pictures there. This is more magazine-like. So if you have kids that want to design magazines or what really want to be fashion designers and things like that, this is going to appeal more to them than the other methods there. So really, really kind of a cool instrument to utilize and to deal with. And I just called it Haiku D'Etat just because coup d'etat is kind of an interesting idea as well. But let me actually shoot that link to you, Webs. The biggest piece is giving your students some time to play around. I know that's wrong. Giving them some time to play around.
I got it.
Got it. All right, cool. Play around with language, and I think poetry is really, really accessible in that sense. You heard Webb say she, playing around with poetry kind of shaped her, in a cathartic experience and whatnot. That I still will write down a very quick haiku or poem when I need some added inspiration, and forcing kids to reconcile with language because again, the cool thing about poems, you can write it in colloquialism, you can write it in vernacular. When you think about hip hop and rock songs and pop songs, they're not singing them in King's English. They're singing them in a way which is both visual and local, right? A common language. When I listen to Kendrick Lamar, I'm like, oh, dude, this is not. I would not take this and put this in an academic treatise to write my dissertation from Harvard. But at the same time, I'm like, I totally understand what this guy is saying. He's speaking to a part of my soul, and this is really dope. So kind of looking at it from a perspective that a lot of times we write or we communicate in order to express ourselves, and giving students the ability to say, I understand triangles. Let me show you that I understand triangles in a way that allows me that autonomy, as Webs was kind of saying before.
So I actually did steal an idea from you. I was asked to present for this thing, software thing, whatever. And I was presenting the article that I wrote about artificial intelligence in the criminal justice system. I don't know if you remember recording this for me. I ended up writing a poem for two voices as a way of conveying what I had learned about that content and sharing it with a wider audience. And it was kind of a play on the Romeo and Juliet. You have the narrator that introduces at the beginning. And then I had the poem for two voices, which you and my friend Goodness were very kind to record for me. And it was conveying this idea of the inequities in artificial intelligence and criminal justice. But it went over pretty well with the crowd, I think, because normally when you go to a session that's a software development session, you're not expecting to hear poetry. So it's kind of a different way of sharing that content. So I think it's a very realistic thing too for kids who grow up to be adults who are willing to take those chances and present their content in a very non-traditional way. It can pay off if you take those risks, and it can be very engaging for your audience.
Absolute facts. So we're gonna kind of continue this kind of poetry thing the next time we get down. So poems for two voices. That's kind of what we're gonna look at. This is a great way. We're gonna look at empathy poems for two voices on Sunday, in terms of how do you get that. Well, one of the things that people are lamenting about distance learning, the kids don't have connections, they don't have community, they don't talk to each other. Great, really easy project to do in class is to pair students together and have them interview themselves and take the output of that interview and create a poem with it. Really easy. There's tons of tools that allow you to record your voice. Kids are going to learn about one another. Kids are going to respect one another. Kids are going to understand the way that they're the same, the ways that they're different. And it is a very easy process. Excuse me. We have a template So if you're using PDFs in your classroom, you just need the kids to type on it. There's a template that I created years ago that just walk you through, hand it to the kids. The kids will walk themselves through that thing. You can kind of keep tabs on them as they go through. But it's not only like super engaging, it's not intimidating. And that's what another thing I like about poetry. It's not like writing a 5 paragraph essay in which you're worried about word choice and making mistakes and stuff. It is a very liberating way to write. And students have always kind of given me, hey, Mr. Lang was really cool. When we did, the last time I taught 5th grade, I taught most of my math through poetry. And it was really, really interesting in that the kids had a point for two voices to do as their summative assessment after every unit with a partner. Their tests were you and your partner need to come up. This is the answer. This is this question. You need to be able to write a poem that answers this question for me, please. And they sit down. They start doing the brainstorming process. Hey, I'm gonna say this. You're gonna say that. I'm gonna say this. You say this. Record it. You can interlace it. Some of the kids get really, really fancy where it's kind of this echo type thing. Like you will. It's a pretty dope process. And again, it's not an intimidating one. It's going to be one that your kids are going to want to write because they're going to want to personalize at the end. And kind of back to that Talis framework with webs. If you show me that I can be creative at the end, I will do whatever it is necessary to do in order to get to that point where I can personalize this. But if you just say I got to write a 5 paragraph essay and it has to have these rules and I can't do anything else, you're probably gonna have people tune out.
Also, you as the teacher, it's way faster and more pleasing to the eye to read through these than it is to go through a 5 paragraph essay.
You can sit and put your headphones on while you Netflix and just listen to the stuff. All right, cool. But this kid understand it. Check. This kid understand it. Check. I mean, I think there is a movement within Nevada from some of the smaller school districts, and it's shameful that this is not in the largest school district in the state for competency-based assessing, competency-based grading, competency-based competency, not grading them for because they completed an assignment. Because again, completion doesn't really mean anything. Webs, if you completed an assignment and it's totally wrong, then like, what did you learn from that?
I learned that I'm soon going to be out of a job.
Facts, right? And so I think that the moving things around, changing the dynamic in which we are an educational institution, not a punishment and a punitive institution. We want kids to learn. Learning involves not knowing how to do something sometimes. Awesome. We're not going to give you the F kid. We're going to help you get to a point where you actually learn how to do those things and you feel confident about doing those things. And when you're ready, you go out into the world and you make sure you're a good tax-paying citizen so everyone can benefit from your skills and whatnot. So Sunday, points for two verses. We and Webs are going to do a point for two verses live, voices live for you, Webs. I don't know.
I'm sorry, what?
We're going to do one live for them. We're going to walk through the process and do it live, man.
Yeah, my calendar might be busy that day. I don't know if I'm gonna.
Bill O'Reilly says, "This is famous rant. We'll do it live. We'll do it live."
He's an awful person, but that is hilarious, and I hope that's the only way he exists in modern media going forward.
We're doing live. That's still one of the funniest things of all time. So we're gonna do it live on Sunday. Kind of how you can get it done in like 20-25 minutes. Of course, for your younger students, are going to need a lot of extra scaffolds, but the power of your Padlet, your Jamboards, those kind of things, where you can have these repositories of collective knowledge that kids can go back and forth and say, Webbs has this experience from Michigan that I do not have. Great. I want to be able to steal her knowledge when necessary. She has that stuff there. Mike is from DC. Great. He has this other body of knowledge. I want to steal his stuff. I'm from California. This knowledge is there. It's the internet. We can steal from whoever we want, steal stuff, reproduce it, build new things. And I think that's the other thing with the webs.
We're not telling you to violate copyright or anything.
Okay. There is no original thought, right? There is not. That does not exist.
Everything's a remix. There's a whole video about everything is a remix.
I'm not saying go and take somebody's words verbatim, but I'm saying, hey, I like how that looks. Let me see if I can recreate it. That's one of the things that I'm going to finish this later on tonight. I was watching this guy stream, and I was like, man, that graphic is really cool. I wonder how I can remake it. And so I've been feeling for the last hour or two, like, hey, move that around. That kind of looks the same, whatever. Like, they're very interesting little projects for kids to do. Like again, I'm assuming that people have the little kids that are in love with YouTube streamers, and they watch YouTube streamers, but they don't actually stream anything. And you're like, what do you like about so and so? Oh, I like this and I like that and I that. Well, don't you realize that that person had to learn how to do those things too? You could do that. Really? Yeah, you can do it. Let me show you how you can do these things very, very, very economically. Which I think that's another show we need to do. Webs is like, hey, you can stream without YouTube. You can stream without fancy stuff. This is like really easy ways you can build this stuff just with slide decks and pre-recorded video. Boom, 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 boom. Now your kid looks like they're a streamer when essentially all you did is record some stuff and throw it behind things, which gives me an idea. But we'll continue. That's all we got for tonight. Sunday, we'll keep the poetry train running. Eleanor, I will get you on the show after Thanksgiving. I'll talk to your father. We'll figure it out. Because Eleanor, my niece is like very uber talented, and I know she likes to share. So I know she's like heartbroken. I am sorry, Eleanor, for being a bad uncle. Go ahead, Webbs.
I was just gonna say, I think we should call it "Thanks for giving me COVID." That should be like the new title. The holiday is not my idea. That was Mike's idea. I just thought it was hilarious.
I mean, that's what I'm referring it to. Be safe out there. If you decide to go and have these in-person situations, like get tested before and after. Pretty please with sugar on top. As a teacher, I would like to have an opportunity to actually meet in person with my students. I just want to do so safely. Without anyone being damaged, either physically or mentally through the process. And so the quicker we get to the let's wear masks and let's socially distance and let's like be cool for 6, 7, 8 weeks, and then everything can open up the way it's supposed to be, I think the better we're going to be as a local community, as a state, and as a country.
Dude, we're going on a year of not having seen each other in person.
Yeah, facts. Like we have literally not seen each other since March, which is this is absolutely insane. Which it'll probably be a year. It'll probably be a year plus.
Yeah. I feel pretty confident about that.
That's absolutely
anyway.
But the fact is we transitioned to a new way to communicate with the world. And I think a lot of people are doing that same thing, where there are a lot more streamers, there are a lot more podcasts are up. There are a lot more teachers are being innovative because necessity is the mother of invention. And we make, as teachers, one of the things that we do at the highest levels is look at things and MacGyver stuff. I think the best teachers are MacGyver. That is absolutely fact. I think if you think about the best teachers you ever had, it's like this person you could tell is broke as a joke, but they made things that engaged you, make you want to be better. Like they it was some Rudy stuff, right? You come out with the oh my God, it's amazing, Miss Summers. Oh my God, I read The Count of Monte Cristo. It's amazing. So, but we'll keep the poetry train going because I think the writing across curriculum is important. And you've got the links that are there. We'll also put those links inside of the Facebook page. And I've got some templates that hopefully I'll finish tonight. I've been saying that for the last couple of days. That'll be in our store as well for some of the streaming assets for you. Our Patreon people, you get stuff for free. Some of the templates and stuff that are inside of all the other templates will be uploaded onto our store. And if you want to purchase those, God bless you. But our Patreon peeps, thank you so much for supporting the dream. Appreciate you all. And I'm about to do the thing, Webbs, unless you got something else to say.
No, I'm good.
Sunday, my people. Sunday. God bless America.
Bye, everybody.